Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie. I am the owner and founder of Lady Falteyes Apothecary, and we are here today to talk about food and to talk about some of the traditions and where they came from. Before we get started here, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can find a little piece of sage here to burn. And I just want to take a second to say happy holidays. And I know there can be some controversy around that phrase, um, that, people don't say Merry Christmas anymore. And I don't say it to be like politically correct. Um, I say it Happy Holidays because I celebrate Yule and I celebrate Christmas, but mostly because most of my family celebrates Christmas. Ooh, that's a lot of sage there. Um, but I have family that is pagan. I have family that is Catholic. I have family that is Methodist. I have family that is Jewish. Um, so to me, Happy Holiday isn't about being politically correct. Happy Holiday is about welcoming all the holidays in and letting people know that however they celebrate is okay with me. Not that they need my okay, but morning, Kimberly, that I'm not here to change anybody's beliefs, to tell them that their religion or the way they celebrate the holiday is wrong, or anything like that. So just happy holidays, and it's from a place of acceptance and welcoming all different religions. So just wanted to put that out there. So if you hear me say happy holidays, it's not because I'm just trying to be politically correct. All right, so we're gonna let that sage go for a little bit, and we're gonna dive right in here. So um, basically, Yule is a really old tradition. Most, I think, people know that Yule was celebrated thousands of years ago by our ancestors. Um, they were celebrated by the pagans, the Norse, typically the Celtic people. Um, so in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, that area. Um, so land has changed some names and some boundary lines and things like that, but you get the point. Um, so I'm not here too much to go over how it was celebrated. I'll cover that a little bit, but really here to talk about where some of our modern day traditions, which is, I think, a wrong statement, but that's how people see it. Um, so our ancient traditions have affected our modern traditions, however you want to say that. Um, so Yule is celebrated at the winter solstice. It's celebrated for 12 days. So you may see where the 12 days of Christmas would fit in there. So Yule was celebrated for 12 days. Um, and so it was celebrated by bonfires and feasting and dancing and drinking and all the things that pagans love to do. Um, but Yule was to celebrate the gods and goddesses, but it was also about celebrating the return of the sun, or how they considered it the birth of the sun. So it would have been like their New Year's Eve. Yeah, definitely. It would have been their New Year's Eve. So they would have seen it as a birth or a rebirth of the sun. And so you could see where the Catholic religion took that as the birth of Jesus Christ, the birth of the Son. So that's kind of where that tradition has come from. I'm not super Catholic or Methodist or any of that, but and I'm not here to debate things, but my understanding was December 25th was not even the date that Jesus Christ was supposedly born. But um, so anyway, that's I'm not saying that for debating purposes. I'm saying that for to see how the tradition was started. Okay, but the Catholics decided to incorporate the Celtic pagan tradition and of the birth of the sun and put Jesus Christ's birthday there. Um, so, so we have the birth of the sun and the 12 days of Christmas being kind of taken there. Um, so I know it's controversial because somebody's going to see this and get really pissed at me, probably. But I didn't make up the history. I'm just telling you what I've learned and what I know of history. So, but yeah, so it was an ancient holiday celebrated thousands of years ago by the Norse, the Celtic. Um, it was not actually called Yule, it was called Jol, which is Jol. But somewhere along the lines, it got changed to Yule. I'm not exactly sure where that happened or how that happened. Um, but yeah, so let's talk about some of the traditions that we have today. That came from the pagan tradition. So, the first thing I want to start with, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but so we celebrate Christmas Eve. Most people celebrate Christmas Eve as basically a holiday as of its own. And the pagans also celebrated the day before the winter solstice as kind of its own holiday as well. It was called Mother's Night. And that would have been a day of honoring the female. So the female goddesses, our female ancestors, they would have burned bonfires, because there was always a bonfire, right? There would have been a lot of incense. They would have been putting out sacrifices of butter and honey, ales, wines, things of that sort. And there would have been a lot of divination. Primarily for them, it would have been geared around the coming year, survival, crops, things of that sort. But they would have been doing a lot of divination and connecting with the female goddesses. So Danu, Freya, Saradwin, Gaia, the Kaliak. I could go on, but there's a whole list of the female goddesses and deities there. So I won't get into all of those. We could be here for days. So that would actually be today. So, if you want to celebrate that in some way, please feel free. And if you do, share with us. Let us know what you did. But yeah, so they would have typically, like I said, left out offerings to the goddesses or their female ancestors that have passed of butter, honey, and some sort of drink, alcoholic drink. So mead, wine, ale, something like that. So, all right. So back to Christmas Yule traditions. I don't really know the proper way to say that without, I don't know. Like I said, somebody's going to be angry at this video, but oh well. So one of the first things I wrote down to talk about is we have the Yule log. So most people nowadays make it into a cake. They make a cake that is representative of the Yule log. And if that's your tradition, that's perfectly fine. I'm not here to try to change anybody's tradition, just kind of talk about where they came from. And so if that's not interesting to you, then maybe this video is not for you. But for me, I like to know where the traditions came from. And to me, it makes those traditions more meaningful to me when I do them. So the Yule log would have been a giant log that they would have brought in and put in the hearth on Yule Eve. Okay, I keep going to say Christmas here, so intertwining. Yule Eve, so Mother's Night, it would have been put into the hearth. It would have been a really big log. Um, I don't know this for sure, but I have heard that it would have been a very long log, and they would have burned it over the 12 days. And so each day they would kind of move because the log would stick out of the fireplace, and that each day they would move the log in to the fire a little bit more so that it would burn the whole 12 days. Um, I haven't actually found any sources of my own to say that is true or not. So if anybody knows, I would love to hear from you, or if you have some references to send me. But I've learned that from other videos, but I haven't actually found a source of that information myself. So, but that was my understanding. It was a very large log that was fed into the fire a little bit every day to burn over the complete 12 days of Yule. Um, I've also heard that it would have been decorated, but I haven't found any source on that either. So that the log might have had things tied to it or decorated in some way. But again, I haven't really found any actual source to say that. So I need a really good book if anybody knows one. Um, That I think, Kimberly, is Samhain, but I'm not sure. I believe there was a log they took from the bonfire at Samhain and brought it into the home, and that fire was to be kept all winter, and then a log from the fire was brought back in the springtime to put back into the bonfires. But again, I haven't found really good sources for that information. So um, again, I don't know everything either. So if anybody knows that stuff, please let me know. But all right, so moving on to the Yule goat. Um, the Yule goat was made of straw, and it was to tribute to Thor. At that time, Thor was known to be in a chariot that was pulled by goats. So there was usually a straw goat that was crafted, usually pretty big. Nowadays, you see little ones that people can hang on the tree or place out somewhere in the house, but it would have been a pretty big one. And it wouldn't have been several ones. It was probably one for like each village, something like that. So the Yule goat is not quite as popular as some of the other traditions. So I just I wanted to kind of get the Yule log and the Yule goat done first, and then we'll get into some of the other things. So, all right. So the next thing I have is the tree. So the Celtic people, Norse, Celtic, pagan, Druid, all lumped together, kind of, were very, what's the word I want to say, connected to the trees. And they believed that the trees were also a connection to the gods. So the evergreen trees, thought of as like the grandfather trees, the father trees, were brought inside for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was it was a way to bring color and life into the home. This would have been a time where it would have been pretty much just white. They didn't have Christmas lights and decorations and things like we did. Um, we do. So they would have brought in an evergreen, been bringing in life and color and connection to the earth, because everything was kind of frozen and dead, right? So the evergreens stayed green all year long. So that was also symbolizing that life energy as well. Then they would have decorated it with things like holly and mistletoe and ivy. Again, those were things that would have blossomed in the wintertime, which was not a lot of things, right? Not much of anything blossoms in the wintertime. So those are a few of the things that do. So again, they would have brought those inside, again, for color, energy, life, representative. And all of it was also for Odin. They would have also put fruit on the tree, probably dried. You often see, if you are familiar with pagan holidays and things like that, or maybe even if you're not, but the sliced oranges that were dried and they would have been hung on the tree, so that like dehydrated. Now most people slice them, throw them in a dehydrator and decorate them that way. But or they would have had the oranges and taken the clove and decorated them. I'm sure you've seen those before. Things like that to decorate the tree. They also would have put candles on it, which was probably not very safe. But again, they did not have lights. So this was a very dark time. Most of them would have had basically light from their fireplace and some candles in the home. But so they would have decorated the tree with candles to bring in light that way as well. So but yeah, the tree was brought in basically, like I said, symbolism of life. It was in honor of Odin, and it was a way to bring in just energetic life to the home. So kind of continuing off that, the Christmas wreath that we know today, the boughs would have often been taken from trees inside as well to decorate the home. Again, because it was like the only thing that was really living, right? Everything else would have been died off in the fall. And the circle was very representative to the ancient ancestors as far as a symbol of eternal life. So they kind of see it as birth, life, death, and then rebirth. So that the circle continues it on and on. So it's kind of, I'm just going to say it. That's where I believe the story of basically Easter comes from, and that'll be another video. But there is a pagan holiday called Ostera that was all about spring and the rebirth, and so that's where, to me, the story of Jesus Christ and him having died and been reborn at Easter was taken from. But again, that's kind of another video. But you can see again where that continuation of that symbolism of like birth, life, death, and rebirth. So it's also representative of the four seasons. So if you want to think of it that way, as like spring, summer, fall, and then winter. So yeah, it's kind of a rabbit hole, and I'm trying to stay on topic and not wander off too much. But if there's anything you're interested in, please let me know. And, we can certainly have a conversation about it, or maybe I'll do a future video if there's something that people are interested in. But I'm just trying to touch points on some of the basics without getting too sidetracked, because I can do that. So, all right, moving over to what we traditionally have is Christmas ham. So the Yule ham was a very common thing that they would have had, because they would have sacrificed. I know that's controversial too, but it wasn't then. They would have sacrificed a boar in honor of Freya. And so they didn't sacrifice the boar and then discard it. It would have been eaten. So that would have tied into their festival and their feasting of the wild boar that was sacrificed to Freya. So that's where our Christmas ham comes from. It's in honor of Freya. Now, we probably are not out sacrificing our own wild boars tonight, but just if you are having a Christmas ham, to me, it's a nice way to be honoring Freya while you're enjoying that meal. So, all right, moving over to Christmas carols. Yeah, believe it or not, Christmas carols even came from our ancestors way, way back. They called it wassailing, and it would have been a group of villagers that would have roamed around the village. They may have stopped at houses if somebody came out, if somebody opened the door and came out, they may have stopped. But they would have wandered the village singing different tunes, probably very different tunes than we sing now. But they would have carried a mulled ale. They would have carried probably apples, things that were still easily available. So some apples, probably eggs, milk, again, butter, things like that, that would have been still handy for them. And so they would have shared it with other people passing by. Now, we think of carolers as they're out there singing for the traditional, like they're singing for their figgy pudding. I don't know if anybody actually gives any carolers any figgy pudding. But I think maybe some hot cocoa or something. But yeah, typically it would have been the carolers who would have been the singers who would have been handing out food to other villagers. But again, you can kind of see where those would cross over a little bit. So couple little things left to go over. This isn't going to be a super long video. So kissing under the mistletoe, where did that come from? That came from our Druid ancestors. So the story went that if two enemies ever met under a mistletoe, which, like I said, does grow in the winter, does bloom in the winter, that they were required to drop their weapons, and they had to form a truce for the day, so till the next dawn. They couldn't be enemies. They couldn't fight. They couldn't do anything for not quite 24 hours. It depended on when this happened, but till the next dawn, the next day, they couldn't be enemies. So so it's a truce. It's a union. It's a peace, love, joy. And from there, that's kind of where we got kissing under the mistletoe came from. So, all right. Last thing, Santa Claus. Again, controversial, right? So Santa Claus, before anybody says, yes, there was, the sun is changing here. There was there are the stories of Saint Nicholas that came out of Germany, of a man who did give toys to children. If you want to look up Saint Nicholas, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. I'm not going to cover that too much. That, like I said, does come from, it is old and it comes from Germany. And I am aware of it. And that could be part of what tied into the Santa Claus. I think that's kind of where he got his name from, where that kind of evolved from. But farther back than that, there was the tradition that Odin, who would have been an older man, who would have had a long white beard. He would have often dressed in, even though he was a god, he would have often dressed more like a villager, usually like a gray hooded cape kind of thing. So yeah, you can again Google it and you'll see all kinds of pictures of how he was depicted. He was depicted as a very, strong man, in lots of armor and shields and helmets and all those things. But he was also a god of children. So he was also very gentle and kind to the children. So the story goes that Odin would have ridden on his 8-legged horse, which is where I think the 8 reindeer came from, the number 8. The 8-legged horse Odin had. His name was, and I probably am pronouncing this wrong, but I believe it's Sleipnir. It's Sleipnir, Sleipnir. And again, I'm maybe saying this wrong because a lot of the stuff I read, I don't necessarily have somebody that teaches me. I read it, and so the pronunciations sometimes are not my strong skill. But the 8-legged horse who flew, and Odin would have brought the children gifts. And so the children would have left their boots by the fireplace to dry. It was wintertime, and they didn't have furnaces and stuff, so they had just their fireplace. So they would have left their boots by the fireplace. And they would have stuffed their boots with straw and carrots for Sleipnir. And so Odin would take out the straw and the carrots for his horse, and he would in return leave a small gift for the children. So you can kind of see again where hanging your stockings by the fireplace and Santa putting gifts in the stockings. And then we kind of have changed it to we leave milk and cookies for Santa. But the children, like I said, would have left straw and carrots for Sleipnir, the 8-legged horse. So that's pretty much it for the end of my video. If you want to know any more information about any of the things I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me. I will do my best. Like I said, I am no expert. These are things that I have read and researched. And if anybody has a good source for more information, please let me know. Oh, I did want to touch base too. If you haven't, you can go on YouTube. I'm not going to tell the story because there's a ton of them out there, but you could really listen to the story of the Oak King and the Holly King. That would have been a story that would have been told as well during this time. So it's similar to the story of Bridget and the Crone. It's similar to the story of Persephone for the changing of the seasons. So depending on what mythology you are interested in. But yeah, so like I said, just a short video today. I have other videos from years past on Yule, so if you want to go back and watch those, they have some different information, but probably a lot of the same stuff that I just talked about. But yeah, so like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. I will try to share the wisdom that I have, although it is limited. Yeah, so like I started the video, happy holidays for whatever holiday you are celebrating. Know that you are loved and you are enough. And thank you for watching. Bye.